Well, I was looking for some new jokes this morning, but I think these might be recycled jokes. But I decided that's kind of appropriate for the day, because I'm sort of talking a little bit about recycling and upcycling and downcycling. So there are some recycled ones in here, but I think maybe a few new ones. These are bloopers from church bulletins. I know you've heard some of them before, but I think a few of them were new. They were new to me. From appearing in the church bulletins, announcements, and so on. Next Thursday, there will be tryouts for the choir. They need all the help they can get. Barbara remains in the hospital and needs blood donors for more transfusions. She's also having trouble sleeping and requests tapes of Pastor Jack's sermons. The pastor will preach his farewell message, after which the choir will sing, "Break forth in joy." Irving Benson and Jessie Carter were married on October 24th in the church. So ends a friendship that began in their school days. 8 new choir robes are currently needed due to the addition of several new members and to the deterioration of some older ones. The low self-esteem support group will meet Thursday. Please use the back door. Weight Watchers will meet at 7 p.m. at the First Presbyterian Church. Please use large double door at the side entrance. The 8th graders will be presenting Shakespeare's Hamlet in the church basement Friday at 7. The congregation is invited to attend this tragedy. The Outreach Committee has enlisted 25 visitors to make calls on people who are not afflicted with any church. I don't think that's right. The Reverend Merriweather spoke briefly, much to the delight of the audience. Bertha Belch, a missionary from Africa, will be speaking tonight at Calvary Methodist. Come hear Bertha Belch all the way from Africa. And finally, the associate minister revealed the church's new tithing campaign slogan last Sunday. I upped my pledge, up yours. I know that was recycled. That's a good. Well, but thinking much about recycling and a new phrase I learned not that long ago, upcycling, which I wasn't taught. I don't think it's quite as well known as recycling or downcycling, which of course is the wrong direction to go in. Things that become useless and can never be used again are just discarded and kind of add to our landfill issues. Upcycling is the creative reuse of something, the process of converting old or discarded materials into something useful and often beautiful. It's the opposite of downcycling. The good thing about upcycling, this was a quote from a website, upcyclethat.com. The good thing about upcycling is that there really are no limits to what you can create. Kind of amazing thing to think about, and it's really kind of grabbed my imagination, this idea of upcycling. I've been getting occasionally gift items especially, or home furnishing things occasionally from a company called Viva Terra that specializes in handmade things by local artisans from all around the world. And one of her key things that she's quite impressed with just the resourcefulness of people all around the world finding creative higher purposes for discarded things, for remnants from the textile business or wood manufacturing, little bits of wood left over, or pottery, or rags, and what artisans manage to do with them. She said what's become very clear to her is that there's no limit to it, that every scrap counts. Every scrap counts. It can all be used. It's all can be turned to higher purpose. I think that's fascinating to think about. She says one person's leftovers become another's feast. All kinds of things. Retired saris that women wear in India are reused. Sailcloth is turned into beautiful shower curtains. Textile cutoffs are used. Wood scraps. I have one of the things I bought from that company, and it hangs in our home. It's a big, large image of the tree of life, and it's got birds in it, and it's kind of out of it's a little similar to that. It's about 3 feet across, I think, and it's beautiful carved metallic kind of wall hanging sculpture piece with birds in the tree of life through it. I just fell in love with it when I saw it. And it came from Haiti and was made out of discarded oil drums. I just love that. It got something out of the trash stream and turned it into something exquisite, something beautiful, something to enhance a home. I think if we shared ideas about that, we've all seen or purchased or been impressed with things like that. There's no limit to human ingenuity and creativity and what we can turn things into. Everything from root bowls out of the discarded roots of wood pieces from trees to rag rugs to all kinds of things, bits of glass that are turned into exquisite pottery pieces. We see this all the time in the material world. We see this kind of creative reuse going on all the time. I was thinking of a dear friend of mine, Jenny. She has started a nonprofit up on Lake Erie in Vermilion to kind of revitalize the beach area there, which was often covered in refuse and wasn't being used very much. And she kind of took that on as a project and started a nonprofit called Shore Thing, about the shore there. And they put up a shed every summer, and they rent chairs out and ice cream, cool drinks they make available, and they clean up the beach, the group of volunteers, every day. And they put in an accessibility ramp so that people who needed a little help to get down to the beach could. And the place is teeming with folks now. It's a really busy beach. One of the things that she discovered along the way that helped make it financially viable and workable for them to do all this was she discovered these bits of lake glass that pop up on the beach. She started collecting those and learned how herself to turn those into jewelry, especially necklaces. I think maybe earrings too, but mostly necklaces with just wire and string or a bit of leather and this beautiful lake grass that's woven around, and started selling them from the shed there on the Main Street beach for $10 each. Turning something that's kind of refuse, leftover old bits of glass from broken bottles and who knows what, that have kind of smoothed and shaped over time into an exquisite little colored bit that she saw the higher purpose in and creatively reused. That idea popped in her mind, looking at these bits of lake glass. I can turn this into something. Where did those ideas come from? There's a deep source in us, a creative source in us. So she learned to do them, she taught others to do them, and they still do that. Several years later, sell a lot of those every summer, and it helps fund their operation and keep that beach going in a vital way. Jenny's jewelry played a big role in that. I think that's an inspiring example. Well, it seems to me we've got upcycling goes on a spiritual level as well. The same creative mind, creative energy is at work in us in these deeper ways too. Taking every scrap of our experience, even some of the broken pieces and the difficult ones and the challenges, turning it to higher purpose in some way. There's a powerful energy at work in us that makes that happen. Every scrap of what we've gone through in life that has turned us into who we are now, there's been an energy with us, kind of turning those around, making them serve a higher purpose, turning it to the good. I think we could share those kind of stories as well, and I bet there will be many for each of us. I was thinking of people I know, for instance, a dear friend of mine, Joanna Hart. She's been gone several years now, but for many, many years she was my go-to counselor I would refer anyone to for bereavement or grief counseling issues. I met her when I went to her for some grief counseling after my mother's death, in 1990, and was referred to her. She had a special gift for connecting with people going through the bereavement process and the grief process. She served as a psychologist for hospice was hospice at Riverside then. I think it's called Home Reach maybe now. She had her own private counseling practice as well. She had this unique gift for a deep sensitivity to people. It came from, in many ways, a really troubled, difficult early life. She grew up in Canada, a difficult family of origin, a lot of challenges, a lot of loss. She had a brother as a teenager commit suicide. She lost her mother far too early to breast cancer. There wasn't any hospice available. There wasn't that kind of care or pain relief. These things registered in a big way on her consciousness. And they stayed with her. And they must have influenced her when she was getting ready to go to college, when she thought, well, I think I'll major in psychology. Where'd that come from? That guidance that came. Coming to terms with some of these things, turning them around, turning them to higher purpose. And then as hospice became better known, she got interested in that. I wonder what this hospice is. Her antenna drew her in that direction. The energy in her, that creative energy in her, helping her turn things to the good, find a higher purpose for these memories, these challenges, that she'd faced. And it helped turn her into this amazing counselor and guide for so many. I mean, I was one of many. I don't know how many lives she touched. I referred many to her. She touched so many lives through hospice, through her own practice, guiding people through dark times, empowering them, listening to them. As one person told me when I was doing some hospice volunteer work, there's just something about her that makes you want to talk. And a unique gift she had, a deep sensitivity that people perceived. Where did it come from? It came from what she dealt with. It came from those experiences, and it came from that power in her that found a way to turn it to a higher purpose. I was reading some, it might have been Art magazine or something. I did some reading here and there. There was something about Jim Carrey, who was also Canadian. I think he grew up somewhere in Ontario. The great humorist, funny guy. And that gift for humor, he cultivated really, really early in life as a kid because his mother was very depressed and very unhappy, and he was always trying to make his mother laugh. Always trying to putting on faces and mimicking and trying to make his mother laugh. And this is, in part, what helped make him who he became later in life with this great gift. Apparently by the time that he was 11, he wrote to Carol Burnett, the Carol Burnett Show, saying he was a master of impressions and wanted to go on the show. 11, that's calling was coming together strongly. And his dad was driving him to gigs in comedy clubs at age 15. Desperate efforts to make his unhappy mother laugh. Painful experiences from the past somehow got turned to something that would be a blessing in his life, his calling, his passion in life, and would be a tremendous blessing to others, because what's more healing than laughter, than the ability to laugh together? I think this spiritual upcycling process, it's a kind of holy upcycling process. It really is going on in all our lives all the time. We're just not conscious of it most of the time. Sometimes in retrospect, as we look back, we think, my, it's interesting how God somehow turned that around, and circumstances arose, and I made discoveries about how I could use this that I went through in a higher way. I know, as I look back on my life, I can see a lot of that. I was thinking, for instance, of a time early in college when I was dealing with a pretty serious depression, and I dropped out of college in my sophomore year and somewhere in fall quarter, just long enough into fall quarter that my mother lost all her money for the quarter. Such is the ignorance of youth. But if depression doesn't watch the calendar, it arose when it arose, and I dropped out the rest of that year and began to see a psychologist once a week for about 9 months, I think. And he was a Jungian psychologist. We didn't have any idea what that meant. He was a psychologist. My mother didn't know of any psychologists. And her sister had seen this person. And but I finally I learned quickly what Jungian meant. It was based on the works of Carl Jung, and a big focus on dream interpretation, and archetypes, and universal symbols, and images that show up in our dreams, that seem to come from that universal consciousness we all draw from, these common images and symbols that arise, and if we learn to track them, what's rising up in us, what's rising up in our dreams, if we learn to track them, that gives us strong clues to our inner life, to progress we're making, discoveries we're making, challenges we're facing, questions we have. Tremendously helpful. So that's what I learned from him in those 9 months. I learned to keep a dream journal and to track the images of my inner life of what was going on there. Things I wasn't learning in college, or really anywhere else. Those kind of courses weren't being offered then. I'm not sure they are now. Tremendous blessings. At the time, I don't think I had any sense that I was doing, that this Jungian, psychology, that these weekly sessions and the dream journal keeping, that it was doing a great deal for me at the time. But as I look back on it, I realized I was learning some things about tapping into my inner life, and it became very useful to me later as I came into my calling in writing, in ministering, in teaching. As did, some years after that, I wanted to write a human interest column. I was trying to focus more on my writing and make writing support me more, and I wrote a column called Heart of the Matter. I did 3 a week just for practice for a year or so, I think, and I sent column samples out everywhere, magazines and newspapers, and nobody seemed to want my columns. They said, well, we can get Irma Bombeck. Why should we buy yours? I didn't have a good answer to that question. So it seemed like it didn't come to much at the time. A couple of publications in SNP, like the Booster in Clintonville, some of the local newspapers, and not much beyond that. But down the road, how interesting it was that when I discovered that the skill, the length I was working with in a column framework, it's just about the length of a Sunday message. And similar topics I was exploring, what's at the heart of human life, what nurtures the spirit day to day. So the nature of the material I was exploring, even the length of it, I got such wonderful practice in. Became a great thing to have in my resources, in my supply closet. The scraps we gather along the way as we face challenges, even at the things that seem to fail, the things that didn't seem to work out, they go into who we are, and there's a power in us that'll turn them to a higher purpose, that'll turn them around. There's a wonderful scripture about this, about God in us as this transmuting energy that'll turn something seemingly completely negative, will turn it somehow to a higher purpose on our behalf, to bless us and to bless others. It's the wonderful story of Joseph, who was a young and boastful young man with many brothers, and he had a vivid imagination, and he was a great dreamer. He was a Jungian before there was Jung, with this gift for dream interpretation. This is a story from Genesis, and so he tells his brothers about this dream he has where they're all bowing down to him, and of course his brothers loved hearing that story, They were already kind of jealous of him, and that's like the topper. They've had enough. So they sell their youngest brother Joseph into slavery. And he's carted off to Egypt. But he's bright, imaginative, creative young man, and he's in prison for a while, but then he starts using his gift for dream interpretation and imagination to serve the needs of the Pharaoh. Becomes Pharaoh's right-hand man. He predicts a famine in the land so they can take some measures to make sure people continue to get fed. And sure enough, years later, people are starving across the land, and his brothers come on behalf of the family seeking aid. And they're bowing down in the court, and Joseph is right there at the right hand of the Pharaoh. And they don't recognize him at first, but then they do, and they apologize. Can he forgive them? He forgives them, saying, even though you intended to do harm to me, God intended it for good. God intended it for good. It's from Genesis 50, if you want to read that story again. There's a transmuting power that will turn it to the good, no matter what happens to us. A way will be found. A door will open. There's a power in you that will turn at any ugly scrap. Every scrap counts. Sometimes you don't know exactly what it is. What thing you tried that didn't work out. What skill you thought you were going to be a master at, but it didn't quite work out the way you thought. What challenge you faced. What loss did you experience? Sometimes we don't know what it is, what scrap it is that's going to wind up feeding exactly what seems the right thing for us to do right now. So what's our role in that? I think it's basic. It's what it always is. It's a matter of awareness. We have to be aware there's a higher consciousness in us, or universal mind, or universal consciousness, Jung might have called it. We have to be aware of that. It's not just us and our little brains. Thank God. Don't you thank God for that daily? It's not just me and my little brain. There is a higher mind, a deeper level of consciousness we need to be aware of and alert to be receiving from. The divine ideas that will pop. This glass is so beautiful, I can turn it into a beautiful necklace. This loss I experienced, other people are experiencing that. I think I can help them. Discoveries will come based on what we've been through. Every scrap counts. So awareness is key. The second one is we have to be careful. Don't be too quick to judge our failures. Don't be quick to judge your failures. Many is the time I felt I failed at something, and yet I brought something from that experience that was an enrichment and wound up being very helpful to me later on. Something I learned, some deepening of sensitivity or awareness, something that seems like it was a failure at the time, might not have been at all. Maybe it was deeply successful in a way we just haven't quite discovered yet. We have to be hesitant to judge. They could be late glass in the making, some of these challenges, these from our past. So don't be quick to judge. And the third one, be alert for the discoveries. Have your antenna up for when that idea comes, when that discovery is made. This is something I can do, and I think I've been uniquely prepared for this. This is something I have skills to contribute to because of what I've been through. These discoveries come to us all the time, do they not? This is what guides us into volunteer service sometimes. This is what guides us sometimes into new jobs or new relationships. It speaks to us. And there's this wonderful, I call it a satisfying rightness. This sense of satisfying rightness when an idea like that occurs. You have this feeling of, yes, this is mine to do. I have the skills for this. I have gifts to share in this area. I have a sensitivity, a deeper compassion. I have an awareness here that has enabled me to do this. I can share this with others. And that will wind up being a rich blessing for ourselves and a rich blessing for all those in our lives. And we don't know the limits of that, how far that can go. Like my friend Jenny on the shores of Lake Erie, or Joanna with her wonderful ability to listen to others and to get them to talk to her as they move through the dark times in their lives. There's a power and presence in us that will turn it to the good. No matter what it is, every scrap counts. So we are alert for that. We're aware of that power and presence in us. We're alert for the guidance that comes, the creative ideas that will arise, the invitations, the opportunities that will come, that will enable us to come up higher and to fulfill more of our high purpose in our lives. Guided by God in me, I am evolving into my higher self. That's my affirmation today, if you'd like to join me in it. Guided by God in me, I am evolving into my higher self. Let's say that once more, closing our eyes. Guided by God in me, I am evolving into my higher self. We take a moment in prayer and affirm that truth within. Moment by moment, we are being guided by a power and presence in us that can turn any challenge, any hardship to the good, that can find a way to lead us toward greater blessings for ourselves, for others, that can take whatever we have come through in life and turn it to higher purpose. And that power is at work right now in all of our lives. If there are challenges we are facing, God is at work in the midst of it. God is at work in the midst of us, guiding us, strengthening us, leading us in the path of life. This is the truth we affirm today, and we are grateful. And so it is. Amen.